cuts. Just cuts.
What's up, guys? So, got to drop the rear subframe. In my case, I've been having a lot of issues with the fuel pump. So basically, I guess somewhere down the line, the car was sitting there with no gas in the gas tank and a ton of rust built up in the tank. And now, there's so much rust in there that I literally scooped handfuls of little rust flakes out of the tank, and they're causing fuel starvation issues. And after the pump was running for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, basically I'd stop getting fuel pressure, and it would start at 6,000 RPMs, then 5,000, then 4,000, then 3,000. And then if you gave it any throttle at all, it would just start cutting out, and the fuel pressure would drop from, where it's supposed to be at 40 at wide open throttle. It would still idle okay at 32 psi approximately, but it would drop down to 10 psi or no psi, and sometimes it'll go to 40, and sometimes it'll go down to 10 psi. Right. It's pretty much like a rev limiter. But anyway, today we're going to be dropping the rear subframe. That's the reason I'm dropping it, to swap out the tank to a new one. But yeah, the torque specs. So this is a 94 Miata. So on the rear subframe, you have 2 nuts and a bolt on each side. So you torque the nuts to 80 foot-pounds. You torque the bolt to 55 foot-pounds. And then you want to torque. See, the 94 has this little bar in addition, connecting the rear subframe to the body of the car. So you just want to take some of those off. You have to take all but one of the nuts or bolts out in order to get the exhaust out of the way. But you want to torque that to, 50 foot-pounds, and then the PPF bolts, you only have to take them out of the front of the PPF. Those 3 you want to torque to 100 foot-pounds, and they're a bit more difficult. But I didn't have a second person, so what I did, I'd just lower it. I put a jack under the differential, lowered it, and I got under the car, I moved the PPF with my hands, and then I used my legs at the same time so that I could pivot the whole thing out of the way. I used my legs on the driver rear tire to move it from a second point of contact. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's go swap tanks. The fuel pump that I now have is a Dutchworks DW200, nice and quiet, and E85 compatible and all that jazz. So yeah, this is basically a few tips on swapping the tank and dropping the rear subframe. But it's necessary if you've somehow taken up a bunch of rust and your car's spitting rust. What's up, guys? So the objective today is to remove the fuel tank. So what I started with, I disconnected the negative battery terminal. I put the car up on jack stands. This cable that runs alongside the PPF has to be taken out. You got to get some needle nose pliers or something and just pop these little clips out, or pry here to pop them out of the PPF. Took the exhaust off right here, right before the cat, and you have to take out the 3 PPF bolts that are on the transmission. But before you do that, you want to support the transmission, because you don't want it. I mean, this is with my hand here, I can lift it up and move it down and whatnot. You kind of want it to stay in place. I pulled out the speedometer cable, which is here. Takes a 22 millimeter wrench to pull that out. Just loosen it, pull it out, and now the PPF is loose for Miata. So you have these braces here. So what I did, and they're gonna keep the subframe from dropping, so you gotta at least remove these two bolts, this one and this one. Then I removed the two rear ones, one of the middle ones, and when I removed that one, basically I left one bolt on. When I removed that one, I was able to move this out of the way enough to slide the exhaust out of the way. So, exhaust is out of the way. And like I said, when you drop the rear subframe, the differential and PPF will just come down. Just got to make sure this is off if you have 94, and your brake hard line at the distribution block. And what I did for that, that's the hard line, and I just grabbed a boot from the bleeder from the other side and just stuck it on there, and for the most part it stops the fluid. Yeah, disconnected right there. There's a where's it at? There's like a clamp over here, so disconnected that. Then I disconnected this from the PPF. Just make sure none of the wires are going to bind when you go to drop it. And you have to take off the e-brake cables. So there's one of these on each side, and it's kind of like your throttle cable, just two 14 millimeters. So you just need two 14 millimeter wrenches. You just want to put one wrench here so it doesn't move, and then with your other wrench you just loosen this nut, and once you have this nut backed out all the way, you can just pull it right off. It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's like a throttle cable, so pretty easy to do. Yeah, like I said, loosen this nut and you get enough play to slide it off, and you can just slide the back piece off back here, and just do that on both sides between that and the brake hard line. And if you have a 94, this bar thing, it's kind of stabilizer bar or tie bar or something. I think that's everything that could bind. I believe the subframe can be dropped now. And to drop the subframe, it's just 3 bolts on each side. Let's see. So, yeah. You got one there. You have a nut there. You have a bolt there. And you have a nut there. So you have those 3 on this side, and the same 3 on the other side. And then the fuel tank has 4 bolts, I believe. One there, one there, and one there, and one there. And then the drain bolt is right there. It's a 17 millimeter, but mine's damn near empty, so I'm just gonna say screw it. So, that's some rust I need to address on the bottom side of the trunk. Otherwise, we're rust free. Like the side seals, guys. Maybe you can see the other one better. No rust. Anyway, Next steps to support the differential with the jack and start lowering it. Oh yeah, and a pro tip, when you're taking out the exhaust, like the exhaust hangers, I just spray some WD-40 in there. It just makes things a lot easier when you're messing with rubber. Hey guys, I just wanted to note that that one right there is going to require a deep 19mm, preferably impact socket. This is going to go a lot faster if you have a impact gun, and I would recommend a using impact extensions as well. Back with a deep socket, and the hardware store didn't have a 19mm, so I got a 3/4 inch, which is the same thing. You take one of these little bolts and so the same thing. So that's what you want to grab. And you can actually get to that last one. So go ahead and take that off. And once again, this is much easier if you have an impact. I mean, this is just an electric impact. That's the last nut. This side's alright, guys. So in the process of dropping the subframe now. Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to have. It would really help if you had like 2 people. You know, one person to lower the jack, and thus the differential and subframe. But I don't have a second person, so what I'm doing now, pretty sure as you lower it, the differential is pretty much just gonna, the drive shaft is pretty much just gonna pop out right here. Now you're also going to have to guide the PPF around the tranny. You gotta get it off of the tranny like that. So as you can see, that's me moving the PPF and moves the whole subframe. So what I did, I just grabbed it with this hand, and then I put my foot over here and kind of wiggled the whole thing until I could clear the tranny with the PPF right there on top. So now that when I lower it, it'll come straight down. And I just wanted to make sure there was nothing else that was going to bind here. And looks like the only other thing's the drive shaft. And I'm pretty sure it'll just pop out as I lower it. Alright, so you're going to remove the 4 little screws here to the gas tank. And you can just use Phillips head. You do want to remove the fuel pump assembly right here, so you got to take the cover off and take the screws out, the electrical connector, the feed and return hose. I don't think you have to take anything off right here. I think it's just 4 bolts that hold the tank in, and like a clip somewhere. Not quite sure, but there are hoses attached to the tank that you have to take off before dropping it. So I'm going to take these 4 out. You got to take this cover off, which is several 10mm once again, and then in here we want to remove this 10mm so we have access to the filler. That's what we're going to do. We're going to grip this whole thing so we can use it as leverage when we're pulling the hose off of the tank itself. I don't think you have to take this piece off, but we shall see. That really helps. Holy shit, that's rusty. There's like actual rust in there. Holy shit. Damn. What does that even mean? Holy shit. That's not good. That's not what I expected to see from a filler hose. Personally, I like the idea of just rolling the subframe out of the way. Now you can see the 4 bolts underneath to drop the tank. It's definitely not a 10, looks like a 12. You get a hook back here that kind of stabilizes it or something. I guess if you go to drop it. I really don't know why that's there. So I gotta put. Well, I might have a couple of gallons of fuel in here. And it naturally drained the tank. But I'm just gonna support it with my hand because I don't think it's that heavy. That's the last bolt out. Like I said, you lift it over that hook on the driver's side and should come out. It's not that hard to remove. The one thing that I missed was taking off this line prior to removal. So you just want to disconnect this hose from that line and the tank should drop out without issue. And of course the electrical connector in these 2 hoses, but there is a 3rd hose you have to watch out for. But yeah, just drops right out. You just want to pivot it over the cover to the fuel filter and then pull it out of there that way so you don't tear up the big. Alright guys, we have the new tank here, and installation is just reverse of removal. Pretty simple. I just want to lift it up. I would pivot it this way. Clear the fuel filter. And pivot up that part. Get these little thingies in the boot. That's the way. And I'll just check up top, make sure the make sure it cleared that rubber boot, which kinda did, not fully. Let's see, I applied some POR 15 down here to everywhere I thought I might have seen a little bit of rust, just to make sure none forms in the future. It's really nice to have fuel pressure back, guys. So don't forget to bleed the brakes once you're done, and if you're trying to block off that hard line that goes to the brake distribution block, you might want to use like a golf tee or something. And don't forget to use a 10mm flare nut wrench for taking off that hard line. And the bleeders are 8mm, and once again you want to use a flare nut wrench. And I think that's about everything. Torque the strut nuts to 30 foot-pounds, I want to say. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.